Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonic.
Okay, we're live. So I am here at the Total Archery Challenge with a good friend of mine, Matt Comment. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. So this is the second year I ran into you here at the Total Archery Challenge. And you're actually a Pennsylvania guy that moved out of state a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I'm originally from a small town called Export. It's about 20 miles east of Pittsburgh. Grew up there, went to Penn State, and then moved to Virginia right after school for work, and kind of been in Virginia ever since.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so what brought you up here for this weekend?
This weekend, just kind of catch up with friends. I mean, I haven't been able to shoot my bow in a couple years just because I got some shoulder injuries, but there's lots of people that I've met kind of in this industry, and yourself and guys that I've been friends with. And, you know, being on the East Coast, especially where I live, there's not a whole lot of guys that are interested in kind of mountain hunting. I came up this morning just kind of do a hike, and normally I'm doing that by myself early on a Sunday morning, so it's kind of nice to get around like-minded people and get a group of guys together and just have a good time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that's the one thing that drew me to you when I first heard you on Adam's podcast, Beyond the Kill, Adam Yonke, and you talked about being from the Pittsburgh area, and it actually mentioned the first article that I had wrote, and you're like, oh, I actually went to his bow shop before at Bucks and Bows, and
yeah, it's amazing how small this world really is.
It's so funny, and so I was really interested in listening to you, and you've been on some absolutely amazing type of hunts, and it's all possible, really, to anyone if you plan correctly. And
yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm not independently wealthy. I work just like everybody else. As long as you make it a priority and it's a goal that you set out to do, it's definitely achievable.
Yes. Yep. And what you said there is a priority, and really being what do I want to say with it? Being persistent and doing the same thing, consistent, I guess is the word I'm looking for with your approach with it. If you're trying to save money for it, or if you're trying to cut something out to save up for a hunt like that, make sure that you do that over time. It's not something that happens overnight, right?
Yeah, I think you need to really look at yourself and say, put the social media aside, put all the TV aside. Like, is it really something that you truly want to do? Mm-hmm. Because everybody gets caught up in life and, sees all this stuff, and it looks cool and it looks like fun, but it may be something that you really don't want to do, but there's other people that are doing it, and it does cost a lot of money. So, search pretty hard and figure out if that's something that you want to do. And I recommend starting small. I wouldn't recommend to somebody, just going on a $50,000 stone sheep hunt the first time, if they're just a whitetail hunter. Start small, start with a black bear, start with going out, maybe hunting a mule deer or elk or something out west, and kind of gradually get yourself into it, because that'll give you a good idea, because it's a huge investment. People have families, they have kids to put through college, they have mortgages to pay, and it's something it's truly not deep down inside that you want to do. It might not be worth it, and that's okay.
Yeah. And that's a good thing you brought up, because when I first started going out west, I had no idea what to expect. And to be completely honest, I mean, it's not fun all the time. It's not, it's type 2 fun, where it's fun to talk about afterwards. But sometimes it can be miserable in the situations, depending on how you look at it and go through it. But I'd like to hear a little bit more on that side of things okay, so, you were talking about maybe slowly getting into it to see if you'd like it. What would you recommend? Going on a backpack style hunt or truck camping, or what do you think would be a good feeler for that?
Are you saying DIY type?
Yes. Yep.
I wouldn't recommend, if you live in a non-mountainous state, I wouldn't recommend a hardcore backpack hunt as your first opportunity into it. Just because there's a barrier to entry physically. I mean, it's very tough. You see a lot of people training for it. It's doable, absolutely. I'm not a super athlete by any means. I mean, I'm 6 foot tall and 180 pounds. There's nothing special there. So maybe doing like a day hunt style where you'd go out and set up kind of a base camp and day hunt from there, and maybe take some gear that you could spike out for 1 or 2 days. And because, guys from the East Coast, we're used to dealing with navigation in trees. And dealing with navigation when you're in a mountainous terrain and you haven't grown up doing that, is a totally different ballgame. And when you get out there, it's so vast and it can be very, very overwhelming at first. So looking at a kind of maps ahead of time and doing like a small core area and trying to learn that, and spend some time there, and then kind of branching out from there. And that way you can kind of pinpoint and understand what you're doing. You won't get yourself lost. You won't get yourself in trouble. The truck's close enough that, if something did happen, you can get back to it in a day, and just keeping yourself safe. And it's going to make it more fun. And that way you're going to want to continue to do it. Okay.
No, that's some good advice there. And like you said, until you get out to the West, I know when I went out there, it was the first time I've ever seen the Rocky Mountains in person. It's one looking at a Google Earth image or looking at the topographic maps, but once you get out there, it can be overwhelming, and you kind of want to set yourself up to see whether it's something you really want to do, and also take the necessary safety precautions along those lines. So
yeah, you want to come home to your friends and loved ones, that's for sure.
Yes, so that's awesome. Okay, so say you do that and you decide, man, I love this style of hunting, I want to find more in it. Where did you go from there? And I guess how long ago did you start mountain hunting, I guess?
My first trip to Montana, I was 24 years old.
Okay.
Right out of college. Myself and a buddy of mine that I went to Penn State with did a lot of hunting, here in Pennsylvania. And we just had it. Back then, I don't want to date myself here, but I'm pushing close to 40, very close. There was no social media. The internet was kind of just happening. I had an email address, but I never used it. So the amount of information that you need to do it was very hard to get. So we had no idea where to start. All we knew was what we read in Eastman's Hunting Journal and watched stuff on TV. So we had no idea. We didn't have any family that had done it or friends. So a friend of mine, same friend I'm talking about, he actually was in a taxidermist shop, and there happened to be an outfitter from Montana in there. And guy said, yeah, I'm an outfitter in Montana, and I have a couple spots. Would your buddy like to come? So I'd save some money, he'd save some money, and we went. And 16 years later, I've seen pretty much all of North America, fortunately. So that's kind of how it started for me, is just taking a chance and going out and doing it.
Okay. So, and you said that your first hunt, you went with an outfitter, correct?
I did.
Would you recommend that for anybody? If it's
it depends.
Financially able to, or?
It depends on what your goals are. There's a couple things. It depends on what your goals are. So if you're the type of person that really wants to hunt one particular species of animal, so say you really got a good desire for elk hunting, and you want to go back for multiple years in a row, because we all know, okay, we hunt whitetails. How often do you kill a buck, or a good buck? Maybe not every year, maybe every 3 years, and that's where you live. So if you're going to do it on your own, I would invest in multiple years going to the same area so you can learn it. Now, if you have some good camping skills, you have some good navigation skills, you're able to read maps, you're able to break down an animal on your own, you're able to get it out, you're able to do all that stuff successfully, I think is a great option to go DIY. If you weren't raised in a hunting background, if you're new to it and you have the desire to go on an adventure, it might be good to hire an outfitter, because you're going to learn and be an active participant in that. So, get in shape, shoot your weapon, get out there and ask a lot of questions. And, people value when somebody asks them how to do something. So if you show interest and you're willing to help, they're willing to show you stuff. So you can learn a lot from doing maybe 1 or 2 guided hunts, and that's going to set you up for success to go out on your own if that's what you want to do.
Okay. Then I've heard a lot of people say that. They're like, if you go out, with an outfitter for a year, maybe 2 years, to learn, have them, teach you some of their ways and learn it, and maybe you'll get that taste underneath you, and more of a controlled setting with having someone that's experienced there with you, that it can help, going down the road.
Yeah, you can kind of compare it to like, so if you're trying to get a job in finance, is it easier for you to get a job in finance if you went just to high school? Or is it easier for you to get a job in finance if you went to high school and college?
Yeah.
Probably if you went to high school and college. So you're paying for that education is the way I look at it. You're investing in your hunting future by having someone that's done it for a very, very long time, and it just shortens that learning span. Now, you're going to still learn a ton on your own, but it just helps you get to the point where you can be successful more on a regular basis faster.
Okay. No, that's a really good way of looking at it with high school and college, because you can only read so much and talk so much until you actually do it.
Exactly.
And that's 100, and you have to do it, whether that's DIY or if that's going with an outfitter. I don't think you can go wrong either way, but like you said, it depends on kind of your backgrounds, and you got to be honest with yourself. I mean, in today's day and age, with social media, I think kind of what you're referring to is a lot of people.
It all makes it look easy. Like,
yeah.
Just hike up to the top of the mountain, shoot a ram, and you come back, and it's not that way. It's a lot of hard work. It is super rewarding. Like, it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've done, other than, getting married and having a son, is doing those tougher hunts and being successful on them.
Yeah. So, okay. The thing that I heard you talk about in the past, and what really intrigued me, is when you started hunting. Did you start hunting sheep first or goat?
For like mountain hunting?
Yes.
It would have been elk. Would have been the first.
Okay.
Elk and mule deer would have been the first animal. As far as mountain hunting that I did, and I did that for quite a few years. And then I ventured up to British Columbia on a spring black bear hunt. Made some good connections there. Kind of went back to BC. I think I've been there 6 or 7 times now, and hunted a bunch of different species. But that's where, when I was in British Columbia, I can remember on my black bear hunt, I was driving from Calgary over to Revelstoke, British Columbia. So you got to go through Banff National Park, and there was these bighorns kind of on the road, like eating salt. And I'm like, man, that is such a cool animal. And then I saw a bunch of mountain goats up there, and just being in that landscape just really piqued my interest. And then I got to know people that hunted sheep quite often and started to read about it, and it was just so intriguing to me, the places that they lived and what you had to do to get there. And I didn't know if I could do it myself, so I wanted to see if I had what it took to be able to do that style of hunting. I mean, I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, I lived in Virginia, I live in an urban environment. Like, that's a lot different. It's an adventure. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was looking for as I progressed. I mean, it wasn't, heck, I didn't even know a lot about that stuff 15 years ago. Like, I've kind of been, I call it like working on my PhD in hunting. Like, I'm constantly learning, about different species and different animals and different things you can do. And, so that's kind of how it's progressed for me. So kind of started with the elk and the mule deer, then black bear, then moose, then goats, then sheep. Then I've gone back and done, elk 3 or 4 times since then. It's been a lot. I'm trying to remember them all. And now I'm starting to get into some interest in some international stuff. So it just kind of opens Pandora's box if you let it.
Yeah. I had talked to Dustin Rowe, who I believe is your outfitter for a lot of those.
Yeah, Dustin's a good friend of mine.
So,
yeah.
And he was telling me some stories about it and everything. And it sounds like you guys had a great time over the years, going on some of those hunts. So
yeah, and that's one of the cool things is once you start doing it, like, you build really good relationships with people. And say you do go on a guided hunt, after you get to know these people, it's more a friendship. And a lot of things that I like about hunting is the camaraderie. And it's, for some people it's great to go out there and do it for themselves, but I find a lot of value in having somebody else to share that experience with. Because no matter how good the pictures are, no matter how good the stories are, it's not like being there. And so when you have somebody else, either a buddy that's going with you or a guide or an outfitter that you know really well, and you have that connection, it just makes that experience even better, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it, because there's some guys that like to do the solo type style and some of the Western
good
U.S.
on, man. That's awesome.
And that's awesome. But then you got the camaraderie side, and be able to talk about those stories afterwards and have someone to experience it with. It's always, it's different for me. I know I really like being with someone to share that, experience with. And like last year when I got to go elk hunting with my dad and my brother, that we've grown up in Pennsylvania hunting together, but going to someplace far off, and packing into a wilderness area together, it was really cool. It was an awesome experience, and I think even brought us closer as a family. So that was a cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's someday we're all going to be old and in wheelchairs, and like you can call your buddy up and say, "Hey, do you remember that moose hunt we went on?" and laugh. And I mean, that just brings some joy to your life. Where, if you did it on your own, you wouldn't have that person to do it with.
Yeah. So you said you're looking to do an international hunt this year, huh?
Yeah, I've been looking at Central Asia, going with a couple friends of mine this fall. So it'll definitely be way outside of my comfort zone. But life is two dots separated by a dash, and you gotta make most of the dash, I think.
Yeah, I think we all wish there was a little bit more time throughout the year, and to one, spend time with family and friends and everything, but also to go on these different style adventures. But because, like I said, for me, I think I'm a little bit behind where you're at, and I'm not saying that in years to make you feel old.
But you're not, though. I mean, you've spent more time elk hunting with a bow than I have.
Yeah.
So everybody's got value, and you can. There's something that I can learn from you about your elk hunting experience in Colorado. I've never done that.
Yeah.
So if I was going to go elk hunting in Colorado, I'd call Bo up and say, "Hey, tell me about what you did." I mean,
yeah.
Just because I'm older than you and I've done more trips doesn't mean that there's not something that I can learn from you.
I can tell you what not to do.
I can tell you a whole lot of that, like a whole lot.
But no, it's just I'd see a lot of myself and your progression. Like every time, I don't want to sound like any sort of expert with it. I've just done it a few times, and I'm just drawn to it. And I just want to keep doing more and more. But one thing you brought up earlier, I'd like to circle back around. You said if you're going to do that, get to learn, an area, especially if you're doing DIY, which is kind of what I've been doing the last few years. Is this will be my third year going into the same area, and leading up in this winter, I'm looking at all these different units and states to hunt, and I kind of went back to the same place in my head and was like, I've got to learn it. I've got to know. I'm starting to learn the elk behavior, how they use the terrain, how they react to pressure, and the time of the year. And I think I'm going to, I am going to go back to the same area again this year, and hopefully third time's the charm. So
yeah, and I think you're doing the right thing. I mean, think about that. You're investing so much time in doing that, and you're getting a fantastic education on animal behavior, how to hike, how to camp, where to camp at, where's your water at, how much food you need. So you're so close. Why not see that through until the end? And then once you complete that cycle, you can take that knowledge and maybe go to a different area. And now your learning curve is so much less.
Yeah.
Because you got the basics down. Now it's just trying to figure out, okay, now I kind of know how elk move. I know how they feed. I know, if I'm hunting them during the rut, how they're kind of act and what to look for. And now you can look at that map and you can say, okay, that terrain looks familiar to me. And you can pinpoint your areas a little bit easier. Does it always work out? No. But it's law of averages. You're just reducing the amount of time that it takes you to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. And you can apply it to even, so whitetail hunting. I like to hunt whitetails in a lot of different areas. And as you know, Matt, I mean, I hunt mostly in, and I can't even say mountainous, but hilly terrain, in Pennsylvania, and big wood setting. But when I go to hunt swamps or farmland, bucks or anything else, it's all different. But you can take a little bit from what you learned there and behaviors, and it may not be exact, but you can apply that to it and test the waters and see.
Yeah, there'll be these little trigger points. You know what I mean? Like you might be in a different spot, but you saw it before, like a funnel.
Yeah.
Recognizing terrain. Okay. Well, when I was hunting the big woods, that funnel was concentrating the deer. Now I'm on a farm. There's a funnel over here. But you learn that from your experience that you did on a completely different place, and now you're applying it when you go to a new area.
Yeah.
But it worked for you. You had success in it.
Exactly.
So you learn from your biggest is your failures. So you learn what doesn't work, and then finally you hone in on what does work, and then you can take that knowledge and start over in a different spot if you want to. If not, if you want to keep going back because you've been successful, that's awesome.
Yeah. No, and you're exactly right, and definitely had a good share of failures, as we all have, to learn from, and and again, in today's day and age, everyone just sees the highlights. The highlights of everyone's life is what they see through social media and everything, and like, wow, that person does really, really well. Well, have you seen the 10 times you failed or missed? Or,
I went on either 5 or 6 elk hunts. Before I killed a bull.
Yeah.
Well over 30 days.
Yeah. And
well over 30 days.
And not a lot of people see that. They may, if they looked at a quick snap, a snapshot of your life, they see, oh, look, he's killed rams, he's killed, goats and elk and everything. And then like, wow, he's been really accomplished, which you have been, but they don't see the whole story of it.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm getting at is, it's going to take work. It's going to take time, but enjoy the ride, because that's the experience that you're looking for. I don't regret anything about going to Colorado and not killing an elk over the last couple of years. I don't regret 1 second of it, because everything that I did, I've learned, and I'm able to apply it, to the following year or the following day or whatever, it may be. You just got to take those experiences and just keep rolling with it.
Yeah, I would say, like, people ask me all the time, like, what's my biggest takeaway, and it's just enjoy the process. And I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't take my own advice, but it doesn't matter how big of an animal you kill. It doesn't matter, if you were successful or not. If you took something from it and it made you a better person, or you learned and it made you a better hunter, then it's worth it. Don't let people on social media or anybody make you feel any different about what you want to accomplish. Surround yourself with somebody that's as like-minded as you, and get out there and enjoy it.
Awesome. So to switch gears a little bit, all these hunts, no matter what, take some sort of money, some sort of monetary value to be able to go on these hunts. Do you have any advice on the budgeting side of things and planning them? What I've listened to you talk about it before, and it's been very helpful personally for me to learn from that. When I may say, oh yeah, that's out of my reach. Well, that's because maybe my priorities need to change or switch a little bit. So I'd like you to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, and the sticker shock of some of them is pretty amazing. There's tons of stuff that I wouldn't even think about doing because it is so valuable, but. If it's something that you want to do, it might take 4 or 5 years or 10 years to save for it. But if it's really what you want to do, sit down, make a budget like you pay for your mortgage or your rent or anything else. Figure out what your end game is. A lot of times with outfitters, you can lock in a price 3 or 4 years down the road by giving them a small deposit up front, and then so. If you want to go on a sheep hunt and you don't have the amount of money in the world that just lets you write a check, and you might need a new truck, instead of buying a $65,000 F-250, maybe get a used one for a couple years and you buy a $25,000 truck.
Yeah. And
I did the math on that before, kind of with interest rates. You can save $9,000 a year just in truck payments for that. I'm sorry, it's about $6,000 just by that. Then if you made your lunch every day, you could save yourself some more money. And if you didn't buy coffee and you kind of just kept those disciplines, in 3 years you can afford an $18,000 sheep hunt. Actually shorter than 3 years. And then when you go on your sheep hunt, hopefully you're successful. You sell your used truck, you go get your big loan, go get your F-250. You went on a sheep hunt, and now you have a big truck. And it's just delayed gratification, really, and refocusing your priorities.
Yeah, and that's what's so funny. You look at $18,000, and it's like, I look at that and a sticker shock, like you said. But when you really break it down, it really doesn't matter exactly. Say what you're making a year or anything. It may just take a little bit longer. You just, like you said, you have to prioritize. And one thing I wanted to bring up was last year, I went out and I bought a truck. I didn't buy a brand new truck. I bought one a couple years old, and I get a text from Matt right away, and he goes, "There goes your sheep hunt." And I was just,
I said you're driving your sheep hunt.
Yeah, that's he said, you're driving your sheep hunt. And I was, if I didn't need to feel, any worse about the decision to have to spend money as it is, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I laughed pretty hard.
No, it's all in good fun, man.
Yeah, I know, but it was funny, but I mean, you really got to look at things like that and see. So, I know for me, one thing recently I did was I'd moved out of the house that I'd been renting. That I travel so much for work and everything else that I'd barely spend any time there. So I moved in with a buddy of mine to save some money, which is a substantial amount of money, and that to plan for hunts and to own my own house also, which is I got to make a priority.
Yeah,
too,
man,
so.
you can balance.
But yeah, so it's just it's all your life choices really, and what you want. You have to be honest with yourself and budget. I mean, it's just planning for a hunt's no different than planning for life.
Just saying, well, I'll never be able to afford it. You'll never go. You just need to change that mindset. It might take me 5 years, but if that's really what you want to do, take that 5 years and save that money. And I will guarantee you will never regret spending it.
Yeah.
You won't. You won't look back and say, I wish I wouldn't have went on that hunt. It'll probably make you want to do another one. And it's just incremental gains where, starting small, starting on a DIY or a smaller antelope hunt or whatever, and it just builds you that confidence that you can save the money, that you can do it, and everything builds, kind of like life. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're not born, a successful businessman. It takes years to do that.
Yeah. You develop over time.
Exactly. So hunting's the same way. You develop the skills, you develop the ability to save the money for it, you develop the physical fitness to do it, you develop the marksmanship, you develop, all those different things, the camping skills.
Overall healthy lifestyle.
I mean, exactly. And then, over time, that investment is going to pay off.
Yeah. No, that's awesome because it's inspired me so much from doing it. So, okay, going out and hunting in a different state, and whether that's, like you said, whether that's going to Colorado or maybe that's even going to the Adirondacks in New York on a whitetail hunt.
Or going to Ohio or going wherever.
So, no matter what, and even taking the cost value away from that, you will remember that for a lifetime more than you will buying, a new truck or buying whatever toys it may be. Maybe you bought a side-by-side or something else. Things that you buy are that instant gratification that you feel awesome when you have it, but that kind of dwindles off. Where the memories of a hunt like that, like a hunt or an experience like that, they just continue to grow and grow fonder, as time goes on. In my short, experience with it. But
yeah, I mean, experience and adventure never depreciates.
Yes.
It never depreciates. It only grows.
Sounds like a good investment to me.
Yeah.
From looking at it from that side of things. So.
Just write me a check, buddy.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But anyways, yeah. So that's what I really wanted to cover from the budgeting side of things from you. So I want to go back to, you live in Virginia now. So when you're going. When you go for these trips and everything, is physical fitness important to you? Is it, the end all be all, or what are you thinking about coming from, not living, up in the mountains?
Is important to me 100%. Is it the end all be all? No, it's not. The way I look at it is I really want to enjoy these experiences as much as I can. And for me, if I'm physically fit, I'm not beat up at the end of every day, I enjoy it more. And I can honestly say it's made me more successful because I did a lot of these hunts, not a lot of them, but some of these hunts where I wasn't in the best physical condition. And a lot of them I wasn't successful on. Some of them I were. And a lot of times, like you talked about, like it's a lot of hard work, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. And so the physical fitness aspect of it is just another investment into the experience for me. Do you have to do it? No. It's all personal. Do I think it's important? Personally, yes, I do. For myself, 100%. Would I recommend that anybody else do the best job that they can get to get in the best shape that they can? Yeah, I would recommend that to them. But if that's not your thing, don't let that stop you from doing it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I mean, in my mind, it's anything that you can do to improve your odds and that you can do it. Why not? I've heard it before and I've seen it. There's a lot of guys that are not in great shape that can do these hunts and can do it completely fine. And whether that's mental toughness or whatever else it is, that's completely fine. I agree with you on that. But
I mean, in my opinion, physical fitness doesn't make you a good hunter. Like, being good at hunting makes you a good hunter.
Yes.
Like, you can be a really good duck hunter and not be able to do a sit-up because you know animal behavior, you know where to be at the right time, you know how to shoot. The physical fitness portion of it, in my opinion, just increases your odds of success when you're doing something that has elevation involved or a lot of miles to it, because you can cover more ground. And the more country that you can look at, the more opportunity that you're giving yourself.
Great. That's great to hear. So in Virginia, where do you spend a lot of your time, working out in a gym, or do you like to be outside? Do you hike, or what? I guess
I split time between both. I go to the gym 3 to 4 days a week. I guess if I'm not training for something, I do a lot. I say I go to the gym 5 days a week, and then I get out and hike 1 day a week. And as my training progresses, from kind of, we'll call it off season to getting closer to a hunt, I spend less time in the gym, probably 3 days a week, and more time doing, call it sport specific activities, hiking, in the mountains. So, but what I look for is, being a hunter, I don't have to be fast, but I have to be strong. I have to have endurance, and I have to have power. So those are the things that I focus my training around.
Okay. And so for real life specific training, when you said you're getting outside, you're hiking, are you going to state parks, or where are you going kind of?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to live where I live. I live about a half an hour from Shenandoah National Park. So on my longer, call it rucking days, under a weighted pack, that's where I usually go on Sunday morning real early and get 5 or 6 miles in and get some pretty decent elevation there. But if I can't get there, I'll use a plyo box at home and do step-ups, or I'll hike around town, and when my son was younger, I used to throw my pack on and push him in the stroller. I had a tire, like a tractor trailer tire, strapped to the waist bottom of my pack, which was my son's kid carrier, and he was a year old. And I'm on the local, rails to trail, dragging this tire down. And, I had some people that were giving me high fives, and then I had other people that I thought were going to call Child Protective Services on me because they didn't know what the heck was going on.
Yeah.
So, you got a busy life or busy family, there's always ways to, kind of simulate what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and the one thing that's nice too and I know from seeing some of your photos and stuff in the past, like when you go to Shenandoah, you can take your kids, you can take your wife.
Yeah, my son has probably hiked more of that park than most people that live in Northern Virginia.
Yeah,
and you get a kid carrier, and there's some great ways to strap a kid carrier onto a Kafaru now, because those kid carriers aren't really good after a certain weight. Once you get up to about 40 pounds in those kid carriers, stuff doesn't really feel good.
Yeah.
So there's, they've come up with ways to, use the Kafaru frame and strap the kid carrier to it, and it's awesome. So you can put your kid in there and then, get up to 60 or 70 pounds and go, get a good training hike in.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, and my son loved it. I used to take him all day. We'd take food and snacks, and, partway through, he'd be sleeping on the back of it, and I didn't even know what was going on. He, when he was, I don't even think, he was just over a year old, and I have a black bear rug in my house, and kind of like a 3/4 amount of a black bear, and I used to take my son down there, and we'd kind of play the name the animal game. I used to tell my wife, look, all this taxidermy, it's educational. That's why I'm doing it. Our son's going to get a good education.
Hey, whatever you need to say.
In animal science, Yeah, she quickly shoots that down. But, I can remember we were getting close to Skyline Drive, and there's a lot of black bears down there. And I come around the corner, and he's sitting higher on the, obviously in the pack than I am. And he said, wasn't even really talking that much, and I could see him, Daddy, black bear. And there was a black bear 30 yards away from us, but, at a year and a half old, he knew what it was.
Yeah.
So that's super cool, me now being a father and transitioning into that aspect of my life.
That is awesome. And so, a little quick side note on Shenandoah National Park. Matt decided that he was going to give me, some tips, some places to hike when I was going down there for a business trip. And I really appreciate those tips. And I went down. I only had a few hours to hike. And he told me to go on this one trail. And he's like, you'll gain a lot of elevation. Do you remember the specifics?
I think at Mary's Rock, you do... It's around either 12 or 1,400 feet in a pretty short distance, so it's a good hike. I
believe it's 2 miles up and 2 miles down.
Yeah, it's not overly long, so it's kind of a quick hitter, which is kind of what you need. It's one thing to kind of walk in a pack on flat ground, but the more elevation you can get in the shorter distance, in my opinion, is really, really beneficial to go into a mountainous environment.
Yeah, so I went there. I showed up. And right before that, Matt texted me. He goes, "Yeah, there's some, thunderstorms, potential in the area." I'm like, "Oh, it's summertime. It's humid. There'll probably be thunderstorms popping up." Well, I park and it was nice out, and I started hiking up the trail, get closer and closer to the top, and kept hearing some thunder. And but still, I wasn't seeing much because the storms apparently were on the other side of the hill. And some other hikers I ran into on the Appalachian Trail there were like, "Oh yeah, you should be fine if you're just going to Mary's Rock." Got up a little bit further and just got hit with one of the worst storms that I've experienced in the eastern U.S. Hail coming sideways. I mean, lightning, wind, anything you could think of. And hold up under a rock for a little while because I didn't want any trees to come down on top of me. There was really nothing I could do at that point. And it cleared up, and I got up and walked out. Saw the nice view at that point. That
probably a couple rainbows.
Yeah, a couple rainbows. That Matt said it was so beautiful up there. So I finally saw that aspect, and started hiking back down. And then all of a sudden, I kicked out a black bear out of the mountain laurel. He's only about 15 feet from me, but it's so thick you can barely see in there. You just saw a black bird, just a black blur, just go through and just. It was nuts. And
the black bear population in the park, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And like people ask me like, "Why I never see bears in there?" I'm like, there's 3 or 4 trails that I could put you on that if you go in the evening in May or June, I will guarantee you're going to see a bear.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was just a little bit before dark by the time I was coming down, so they were moving.
Yeah,
quite
you were
a bit.
there at the perfect time.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, he went down over the hill. I'm like, oh wait, this trail just switchbacks, So then all of a sudden I'm below him. I can hear him up there, and kept going. But then I got hit with another storm on the way through, and I just ended up running the rest of the way down. And the funny thing was, again, I can't really blame Matt because he told me a story about. With him and having his son on his back when a storm like that came through on the same trail.
Yep.
So that was what was kind of funny about it. But apparently I need to listen a little closer. But anyways, it was.
Hey, we all got to find out some stuff we're on our own, right?
Yeah, it was a great experience. I have a phone that's doesn't work anymore and everything else, but. Again, it was an awesome experience, and I can't wait to go back. Hopefully, next time you and I can link up.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
And do a hike there. So whenever I go out, I think I'm going out in a couple weeks there. But again, traveling on the weekends is tough to connect. But
even going back to what you were talking about, like when I moved to Virginia, I had no idea about Shenandoah National Park or even how to train to get physically. There was no train to hunt back when I was starting to doing this, and there was CrossFit didn't even exist or any of that stuff. So I value the fact that hunting for me has shown me so many other things that I probably might not even known existed that I found to, get myself in shape or make myself, have more experience in the wilderness is these public lands or Shenandoah National Park. Like I might never even looked into that, if it wasn't for me starting to travel to go out west to hunt.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, like you said, I never knew I was, interested in hiking or just, regular camping or doing anything like that. And now I do it to test my gear and everything, but I like it. I enjoy it, and it's something you can do with the family. And also, I don't have any kids myself, but, with your son and everything, to get outside and, away from the TV, away from the video games and everything, and be able to experience, the stuff that everyone else did as kids back before that was out there.
Yeah, I just bought a new tent. I bought a Hillyberg Nyack, and I've used the Hillyberg Solo a lot, and that's like a true one-man kind of tent, 4-season. And the Nyack is kind of like a 3+ season tent, but they call it a 1.5. And I got that because, I'm going to take that, and Hillybergs are expensive, no doubt about it. But when there's a few things that I'm pretty passionate about where you should invest your money on as far as gear, and your shelter is one of them. But my thought process was, I really like the Solo. It's a one-man tent, but I can get the Nyack. That's a quote-unquote 1.5-man or 2-person tent because, the 10 days a year that I'm using in the West, that's great. But as my son gets older, he's getting ready to turn 5, showing some interest in camping. I can use that probably until he's 8 or 9 years old, and he and I can do some backpacking and fit in that one tent. So, I'm not spending just the $700. That's a lot of money on a tent.
Yeah.
For the one time a year use. Now I'm going to be able to extend that, use it for hunting and use it for some family camping trips.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Multi-use stuff, for anything.
Oh, I'm all about it.
Yeah. Heck yeah, I agree with you there. I think I heard you say in the past that when you buy, say if you're buying gear to hunt as far as apparel wise, you usually buy solids so you can wear it. And
I do buy a lot of solids. In most of my travels, I do rifle hunt because I'm just trying to put the odds in my favor as much as possible. Yeah. I'm there to shoot an animal. I mean, I'm not there for an expensive camping trip. I'm not that good of a bow hunter, and I like guns.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing wrong with that. That's for sure.
So with that being said, I don't have to get as close as like an archery hunter would. So I tend to buy solid color pants and camo on top, because if you're going to shoot a rifle, you're going to shoot prone or you're kind of crouching behind most of the time, that your upper body is what's exposed and your legs aren't. So now, because of solid colored pants, I can wear them out in the field when I go to work. I can wear them to hike. I can wear them around town, and I just get more use out of them.
Multi-use, that's the best for your money, right?
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that side of things. So, well, anyways, Matt, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover?
No, I think we got most of it, but I appreciate you having me on, Bo. I mean, It's nice. Hopefully, this will inspire somebody. I mean, I've had a lot of great people. I wouldn't be anything really in life without the support or help of my family and friends. And so I'm really appreciative of that. And I want to be able to give that back to somebody else. So hopefully maybe this will help somebody, get off the fence about going out west and have a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game. And that's why I wanted to, start this podcast and roll with it, is my experience from doing that and all the people that, I can thank from to help me to experience that and just go out and finally do it. I hope that other people can learn from people like you and others to be able to do that themselves, because it's an experience like no other. And like you said, maybe it may not be for you, but you'll never know if you don't try.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, is there any place where people can find you? Any other information? Any other podcasts maybe you've done in the past?
I've done a few podcasts with Journal of Mountain Hunting and Adam Yonke. Got a social media page and Instagram, just Matt Comment. If anybody has any questions or wants any help or anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to give you any advice or experiences that I've had, because there's a lot of things that I've done wrong, and a lot of money that I probably spent twice that I shouldn't have. And I'd like to see somebody maybe spend it once and go on another hunt instead of spending it twice.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much, Matt, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonic. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.